When you're having a conversation about audiophile sound in a car, you'll be hard pressed not to bring up today's feature brand. Of course, I'm talking about Focal, the made in France brand that has been innovating loudspeakers since the get go, with its roots heavy into home audiophile systems as well. And recently, a brand new introduction into the K2 EVO line to add to the great selection of audiophile grade speakers that Focal has to offer. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Focal, and it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and on the agenda is audiophile sound, surely one of my favorite topics because we get nerdy about car audio. And today's brand is nothing short of providing the tech and the technology that they have come up with when it comes to cone materials and cast baskets and tweeters, for example. And we're definitely going to dive into that today with our special guest, Grant MCFATTER, who joins us from Trends Electronics. Now, Grant, some really cool announcements coming out of SEMA recently. What are we going to be covering on today's show?
Ben, yeah, we just got back from SEMA. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But today we're going to be covering off basically all our made in France products. So from Slate fiber, Flax, K2 EVO, the brand new product, K2 M, which was introduced late last year, and obviously our flagship product, the Utopia M product.
Wow, so many different levels and cone technologies to be discussed on today's show. So if you love audiophile sound, you found the right show. But first, a quick opportunity for our partner SiriusXM to remind you dealers out there why you love it. And when we come back, we're going deep into Focal.
Hey guys, Ricky Lima here from SiriusXM. I had a chance to speak to some dealers and ask them what they love about selling SiriusXM. Here's what they had to say.
Coast-to-coast coverage.
I love SiriusXM for commercial-free music.
It's a great add-on sale and a profit opportunity.
We love selling SiriusXM because you can listen to the same channel coast to coast.
Profitability and ease of installation. It's a no-brainer.
We love selling SiriusXM for its ease of installation, great profitability, and reliability. People love it.
Welcome back, everybody, to another CMA Connected. We've got Focal on the plate. Lots to dissect here and unbox. But Grant, we're going to start from the very top. And when I say the very top, I mean the pinnacle. I mean the absolute apex predator in this category, which is Utopia M. Its legendary performance precedes itself, and really, from the installs that I've seen dealers do in these top-notch installations, there's a lot to say here because there is so much technology built into Utopia M. So I'd like to give you the floor so you could talk a little bit and explain why Utopia M has the reputation that it does.
Yeah, Ben, Utopia M is definitely one of those speakers that you see in all the best of the best installations. Tough to beat the quality of performance out of these speakers for sure. When you get up at the list level, the air is pretty thin. There's not a lot of competitors in this Utopia realm of products. So whether it's the large 10-inch driver, the 8-inch mid-bass driver for the door, your 6-inch mid-bass driver, your 3-inch mid-range speaker, or the world-famous TDM tweeter, it's a force to be reckoned with when it comes to high-end audiophile sound. So I added a slide here so you could viewers could see the range of the product. So obviously you've got the TDM tweeters, which is our flagship tweeter product, our 3-inch mid-range speaker, 6.5-inch mid-bass speaker, the 6WM, the 8WM mid-bass driver, which is awesome. You can use it as a mid-bass driver in the door if you've got a 6.5-inch speaker, but you've got the depth. The 6.5-inch depth will work, but you've got a little more space, like a 6x9 or something like that in some of these Ford trucks. You can make a spacer ring, and a lot of times you can fit that 8-inch in the door. So the 8-inch is awesome for fitting inside doors or those applications where you can don't have a subwoofer in the vehicle itself. And then rounding it out for the Utopia M product is the 10-inch subwoofer with the beautiful red magnets on all those speakers, which are killer for doing your installs with your Moscone amplifiers and your red fans. And then one other SKU at the bottom of the slide there is a very popular piece called the 165 WXP, and that is that gets people into a price point Utopia M product that are just a simple two-way component kit. That can be run active. You can bi-amp it with the crossover that's included, or you can run it as a simple two-way crossover setup on there. So if someone wants a little piece of the Utopia M, but doesn't quite have the budget for the 6WM drivers and so forth, the 165 WXP is a great option. So I want to talk a little bit about the technology on some of these speakers, Ben. Most of the Focal speakers, especially from Flax all the way up, use a 3-layer sandwich type cone. So a couple of benefits from that is obviously you get a super rigid cone. You've got the fiberglass layer on top, whether it's a foam or different material in the middle layer, and then you've got your fiberglass layer on the back. Gives you a super lightweight, super rigid cone. For instance, if you look at the subwoofer here, the 10-inch subwoofer, if a dedicated sub, this thing will play from 30 hertz all the way up to 250 hertz. And not only that, it's got lots of X-Max. You've got about 20 millimeters of X-Max on this driver. So it's not just strictly an audiophile driver. Someone wants to have this and hammer. You can certainly put 700 to 1,000 watts of power into these things, and they deliver on maximum output. On the mid-bass drivers, so the 8-inch and the 6.5-inch drivers, the frequency range from those is typically between 40 hertz all the way up to 2,500 hertz. That's if you're not using our mid-range speakers. So if you've got just a 6-inch and a tweeter application, pretty much the crossover point you want to set is between your 6-inch driver and your tweeter would be 2,500 to 3,500 hertz. If you don't have the limitations on a two-way only, then obviously we go to our little 3-inch man jewelry driver. So this is a gorgeous little speaker, 3-inch driver, machine basket, beautiful little vented back pole piece on the back here with the red magnet. This guy here is designed to play between 250 hertz and 2,500 hertz. Obviously your X-Max is a lot lower because it's a smaller driver, but for those cars where you have a 3-way application, whether it's a custom A-pillar, custom kick panels, whatever you're doing, obviously the 3-way setup is optimum if you can make it work. So beautiful sounding speakers. I mean, you can talk all you want. Basically, you have to sit inside a car or get on a demo board to hear how amazing these speakers are. We can blah, blah, blah about frequency, test tones, all this stuff. But really the proof comes when you sit in the car, listen to these things, and you can hear Diana Krall in the dash of your car, or Santana's guitar strings. Sounds like it's coming from the air vents and stuff like that. So amazing sounding speakers.
Absolutely, Grant. Without a doubt, the Utopia M remains in a space that very, very few other drivers can occupy. Absolutely the top of the line available in our industry when it comes to that high-end, high-fidelity offering. Now, as we go down the scale, and really when we go down, this is not a steep slope, but a staggered slope. We're going to be talking about our next series of speakers, which is the K2 M. This was recently introduced just last year to a lot of fanfare. We had a chance to listen to it at our recent show. But Grant, please walk us through the unique features that make a K2M an amazing offering for that audiophile listener.
So K2M was born basically from to offer a step down from the Utopia M. Some people thought that Utopia M was maybe too audiophile-ish, and they wanted it to hit more, get that that kick drum, like a little bit of snarl, or you're playing some Metallica and the Utopia M is just not keeping up to what you want to rip your face off type of thing. And where Kevlar was, that's where a lot of guys that bought Kevlar product, the K2 Power product, was. It's known for a great mid-bass attack, really killer dynamics, and you can play it at 11 and the speakers don't break up. So the engineers at Focal came together with something that was a hybrid of both. You've got the M profile cone. It's a trickle down effect from the Utopia M. And then you've got the Kevlar cone, obviously as a trickle up effect from the K2 Power. So much smaller offering for product wise. We have a 6-inch mid-bass driver. It's a cast aluminum basket, very large iron ferrite magnet. This has got a 3.5-inch voice coil on a 6.5-inch speaker. So you've got a bigger voice coil on a 6-inch, or our 6-inch anyway, than most companies have on their high-end subwoofers. So needless to say, these will handle a ton of power. We had a set in Karam's car at the CMA Expo last year, and they're running 150 watts RMS into it, and they barely even move. So you can certainly throw lots of power at these. They don't break up. Part of that obviously is a couple of the technologies on the M profile cone, also the tune mass damper. So if you look closely on here, you'll see a couple of rubber rings on the outer surface of it. So that's called a TMD. That's a tune mass damper. And what that does is it makes sure that profile of the surround stays intact when this cone is moving up and down. And that way it doesn't allow the cone to flex. So lots of power handling at extreme output levels. These things hold it together. You're not going to get any bottoming out or any kind of cone distortion because the surround's not holding it together. To match up the rest of the family, we have a 3-inch mid-range speaker. Again, beautiful little speaker. A 1-inch voice coil, which some people have on their entry-level subwoofers. We have it on our 3-inch mid-range speaker. Beautiful sounding mid-range speakers. Probably the creme de la creme, to use that's about as much French as I use in my language, is this part of the lineup is here, is the new FRAC tweeter. So this thing will play down to as low as 600 hertz. Don't really recommend that on a daily basis, but if you have the application where you cannot fit a 3-inch speaker, this will do a lot of the legwork for you. So ideally, I would say 1100, 1200 hertz is an ideal spot to cross these over at, even though they'll play lower. But that's kind of an extreme situation. So amazing sounding tweeters. This thing, we did a demo at SEMA where we had a 6-inch mid-range with a tweeter in a bookshelf style speaker. And then we had the 5-inch subwoofers in an enclosure. And then halfway through the demo, they said, we're going to change something. You tell us what we did. So they changed it and everyone listened to it. And they said, sounds almost exactly the same as it was with everything. What did you change? Well, what they did is they shut off the 6-inch mid-range speakers or mid-bass drivers. And they were only playing the FRAC tweeter in the 5-inch subwoofer. And there was no gap. The detail in the upper mid-range, the mid-bass attack, everything was still there. And it was only running the 5-inch subwoofer and the tweeter. So pretty cool little demo. Again, if you've got the room for the 3-inch, use it. If you don't, it's an awesome option and a great reason to use FRAC or the K2 M product over K2 EVO. And then rounding out the lineup, we talked about it a little bit, is the 5-inch subwoofer. They had this in the lineup on Utopia many years ago, so it was pretty cool when we saw this. They brought it back. So again, you've got a 3.5-inch voice coil on a 5-inch subwoofer. Lots of power handling, anywhere from 250 watts and up is what's recommended for these. Super small sealed or vented enclosure. I believe it's 0.25 cubic foot sealed and 0.32 vented. So really, really small enclosures for these. I would use these obviously in multiples because you don't have the cone area to obviously it's not going to give you a bass out of a 12-inch subwoofer out of a 5-inch. So where you can, underneath the seat of an old hot rod or something like that, where you don't have room behind the seat, you can maybe put 4 of these underneath the seat and give you killer bass. I've heard 4 of these in a truck and it sounded like a pair of 12s, but this box size was next to nothing. So where space is an issue, application wise, it's an awesome driver for that. That basically rounds out the K2M line.
Grant, I will say this, not only do those K2M sound incredible, but wow, do they ever pack a punch. And I think dealers, if you get a chance to experience this for yourselves, you'll understand what I mean by that. Now, moving on to the biggest news of today's episode, in my humble opinion, is the recent announcement of a brand new line of yellow cone iconic K2 speakers. This time they're calling it the K2 EVO. So Grant, is this an actual new line or is it more of a refresh?
In some cases, it's a refresh. In some cases, it's brand new, never done before in the K2 power line. So I brought a few pieces here. Some of it's still on its way from France to us, but we should probably have that, I would say, in the next week to 10 days, we'll have the full line in stock. So starting off the lineup, there's 10 brand new SKUs, first of all. So it is a brand new category. They never had 10 SKUs before in the K2 power line. So we've added a few pieces here to show you. So first off, to start off the line, there's a 4-inch component kit. What is omitted from this line this year is they did have a 5-inch component kit before, and that has been omitted from the line. Worldwide sales of 5-inch component speakers is not what it used to be. Now that BMWs take a 4-inch speaker. So starting off with the first series of the 6.5-inch drivers is the ES165KE. So this is a brand new tweeter. This is the K2M tweeter, but they've all blacked out. The basket on the mid-bass driver went from the champagne gray color to a full black as well. So more of a cosmetic change on this SKU. And then the step up from that is the ES165 K2E, which you lose the face plug, and you gain the face plug, lose the dust cap. So for off-axis response, the face plug version is much better. So down on your door, if you don't have a three-way speaker set up, or if this is in a application where it's completely off-axis, you're not aiming the speaker at you, this is obviously a better option for you. So the face plug does help with the off-axis response. Tweeter is exactly the same, but you'll notice the crossovers look much different. If you look at the overhead, this is the ES165KE, and this is the K2E version of it. Obviously, a much larger crossover. So a couple of things. They give you more audiophile components in there so you can get better tuning on it through the passive crossover. And it's also biampable, which is not biampable on the entry-level model. So if you want to run an active mid-range, active tweeter, you can do that through the passive crossover network. That's really the main difference between these two. Is you go from a dust cap cone to the phase plug and a more of an audiophile grade passive crossover network. Stepping up from that, take these out of the way. There's a brand new shallow set of components, which I do not have here in studio. They're on the water. We did get a chance to listen to those at SEMA, and they sound incredible. I mean, they do not sound like there's any compromise just because it's a shallow cone. You lose about an inch of mounting depth. So those applications where you've got a hot rod, you've got an older Honda Civic or Subaru WRX type of thing where you can't fit a regular, 2 15/16 inch or 2 3/4 inch magnet in there. You've got about an inch shallower mounting depth on the brand new 6-inch component kit. So same tweeter, same crossover network, but you get a shallower mounting depth speaker, and by no means do they sound like they're a shallow speaker. From there, we go up to the next model, which is the ES165 KX2. So the biggest difference on that one is obviously you're keeping the phase plug on there, but you're gaining the FRAC tweeter that we just talked about on the K2 EVO series. So you get away from the Take-EM tweeter, which is a great sounding product, but this is a much more dynamic tweeter. And application-wise, again, we talked about if you don't have room for a 3-inch mid-range or a three-way setup in your car, this tweeter plays a lot lower. It'll get down and dirty where that mid-range speaker needs to be, and you can do it with a 2-way kit. So that's the biggest news really in the K2 EVO set of speakers is the flagship 2 sets, the 6-inch 2-way kit, and the 3-way kit will also incorporate a 3-inch mid-range in there, and that'll also have the FRAC tweeter in there. Obviously, with this tweeter playing a lot lower, there are new passive crossover kits. Whether you use them or not, or whether you're a strictly DSP guy, that's up to you. But in the box, we do give you the passive crossover kits. The other thing that's also cool with Focal is we give you all the grills in the box. So if you do it, we dealt with some other brands in the past, we had to buy the grills separately. It can be a pain in the butt try to access just the grills. So Focal gives you all the grills in the box. So whether it's a 3-inch, whether it's a 6-inch grills, you've got it in the packaging as well. So awesome set of speakers. We heard the shallow mount ones and the shallow subwoofers. Talking of subwoofers, there is a brand new subwoofer offering coming from the K2 EVO series. The E25KX, which is the one I have here because I don't have the old. Pardon me, I don't have the new ones in the building yet, but this is the E25KX. The KXE will be a black basket. They've taken the Focal flame off the dust cap, and the basket and everything is black as well. Same with the 12-inch version, the E30KX. What's really cool, though, is the brand new shallow subwoofer. So basically, they've taken this driver. You've got this monster magnet on the back of the E25KX, and they've taken that off and inverted it into the basket. So a neodymium motor structure inside this basket. So basically, that depth there is now your new mounting depth of that shallow 10-inch subwoofer. You've gained all this extra space of the magnet. So shallow applications, pickup trucks, SUVs and quarter panels, stuff like that. Anywhere you don't want a traditional big wedge box. And that's where we think that new 10-inch driver will be super awesome. So 350 watts RMS, 700 watts peak, and total mounting depth is 3.72 inches. So K2 EVO, man, we're looking forward to getting going with it. It's been a while since there's been any upgrades on the current Kevlar line, and now we've got some significant changes.
All right, Grant, we've got 2 more series to cover, and the next one I feel is by far one of the most popular ones that we see in installs. Maybe it's the price, maybe it's the performance, or maybe it's a blend of both. One thing is for sure is the unique characteristics that make up the Focal Flax series. Why don't you tell us the huge offering, because this series actually has quite the offering for many different applications.
Yeah, Ben, too many products to have out on the table here and show it off. So I've given you a slide to show off the different products, but I did bring out my favorite. The Flax speakers is the 3-way kit and their 8-inch subwoofer, but we'll go through the lineup top to bottom on what they have to offer. So starting off with component speakers is what we have on the table here, is the 6-inch, 3-inch tweeter 3-way kit with the passive crossover network. One of the really cool things with Flax is, they searched the world for this new material they were trying to find to bring out a new line of speakers. And they actually found the material in their own backyard. Flax is actually one of the largest manufacturers or suppliers to the world, the Flax itself. So when they got this cone material and they tried it out, it worked perfectly what they wanted for. But it's kind of unique the way they actually apply it to all the different speakers. So if you grab this little 3-inch speaker, obviously you can't feel it through the magic of television here, but the cone is super thin. This is maybe like a millimeter thick, 1.5 millimeters thick. When you move up to the 6-inch mid-bass driver, it's substantially thicker. You're probably double the thickness on there. So obviously this is designed for playing, upper mid-range, high frequencies, some upper strings, piano, etc. This is obviously designed for more mid-bass attacks. So having that extra thickness on the cone helps that driver do those lower bass frequencies. And then when you go into the subwoofers, obviously the cone is a much thicker cone as well. I think you're about 10 millimeters, not 10 millimeters, it's 3 millimeters thick on the this 8-inch subwoofer. So pretty cool the way they do the technology on the drivers. As far as some other technology points on it, again, trickle down effect from the Utopia M all the way down to this series is the TMD, that tune mass damper. So you'll see that little extra ridge on the surround. Again, that's keeping that surround stiff, intact, so that cone doesn't flex. There's no cone distortions. They even have it on the little 3-inch driver. Aluminum magnesium tweeter can be really bright if you want it to be, or super smooth if you want it to be, depending how you set it up. So you've got up to 18 dB of adjustments on this crossover. If you're using a passive crossover network, obviously if you're using DSP, you've got infinite amounts of crossover points and frequencies you can play with. But as far as the Flax line goes, I mean, if you bring up that slide again with all the different models on there, you've got a 6-inch 3-way kit. You step down from that one, you go to the second most popular SKU we sell. Sorry, the most popular SKU we sell in the lineup is the PS165 FXE. That is a large motor structure 6-inch mid-bass driver. You've got the off-axis phase plug on that one there, same tweeter, but you've got different crossover points on there because you're dealing with a much bigger driver on the mid-bass driver on the mid itself, motor assembly. Step down from that one, you go to the PS165 FEs. That one you lose the phase plug, so not as great for off-axis response. If the speakers are down low in the kick panel or down the lower door, part of the door, you're better to use the FXE ones with the phase plug in there. The off-axis response of that mid-range is better. Shallow applications, we have the FSE versions of these, the PS165 FSE, where it's the same tweeter as the entire lineup, but you go to a shallower mid-bass driver. Again, these do not sound like shallow speakers. I've heard some speakers that are slim line, so on and so forth, and you don't have that mid-bass attack. With the Flax series, you certainly do. That keeps intact. They do have a 5-inch component kit, and then rounding out the speaker line, as far as a coaxial component kit is, there's a PC165, which is the 6.5-inch coaxial speaker. A lot of years back, we were selling pretty entry-level speakers for the rears because rear speakers didn't matter. With the technology we have now in DSPs, where we can blend that rear channels with the center channel, more and more people are putting higher end coaxials in the back. So Kevlar's, Flax speakers, all really nice high-end mid-range coaxial speakers for the rear. And then subwoofer offering, we have a 10-inch driver. We have the P25FE subwoofer. We have an 8-inch subwoofer, and then we have 2 shallow versions of the exact same woofers as well. So shallow 8, regular depth 8, a shallow 10, and a regular depth 10-inch subwoofer. Beautiful complementary line to all their coaxials and component speakers. If you want to keep it all in the family, there's certainly enough SKUs in Flax to do that with.
As I said before, a really vast offering when it comes to Flax, being one of the most popular series that Focal currently has in its catalog. Our final level, I suppose we can say, is also recently introduced. It's another material that Focal has, for lack of a better term, invented for the use in high fidelity loudspeakers. And this one has some rave reviews because they're being used a lot on the home audio side of things. Grant, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Slate Fiber?
So Slate Fiber rounds out our made in France product. So everything else above this obviously is made in France. Anything below that is product made offshore. So this is really our first level of made in house, made in France product. Some people have heard this and do consider it an audiophile speaker, even though it's under $600 retail a set. But that's just testament to the quality of the product itself. Like you mentioned, a lot of guys, on the home side and commercial side, they have a lot of these Slate Fiber speakers in bookshelves, tower speakers, recording studio monitors. So it's not an entry level product. It's a great sounding set of speakers, and anyone that's listened to any of their pro audio stuff can attest to that. On the car side, it's limited to 2 SKUs. We have a 6.5-inch component kit and a 6.5-inch two-way coaxial. So all cast baskets. So it's not a stamped steel driver. It's still a cast basket. The bottom plate is sealed. So if you are putting it into an enclosure of some sort, you don't have to worry about letting the pole piece being vented. The cone itself is pretty unique. So this actually is a predecessor. This is actually a bit of a story here. So before this line came out, there was a series called Polyglass, and many guys of you that have been Focal dealers for years are very familiar with Polyglass. So they were trying to think of a way to phase out Polyglass, even though it was a huge market seller, still tons and tons of them worldwide, but it introduced this new cone. So they kept the poly side of the Polyglass speakers, but they wanted to get a little more stiffer in the cone because there was still a little bit of cone flex in the Polyglass. But they basically infused it with carbon fiber flex. So you've got a super rigid cone, super lightweight. And the benefit of that over Polyglass is your upper mid-range detail is much better off axis than the Polyglass series itself. So the Polyglass line is still in the lineup. It's not made in France. This product is, and it'll give you a step up in performance for sure. A couple of unique things with the crossover. The crossover comes separately. So you can either mount it like this in the back of the car where it's going next to the amplifier and have your output to your tweeter, output to your mid-range. Or for those guys that have, let's say you're doing a Ford truck and the tweeter's up high in the dash and the mid-bass, the 6x9 mid-bass is in the door, the 6-inch in this case, and you don't want to run the passive crossover through the boot in the door. So you can actually separate the crossover, have one part for the mid-bass driver in the door or in a kick panel, and the other part for the tweeter up in the dash or down the kick panel as well. So kind of a very cool, unique, installer-friendly way to do the passive crossover network in there. Tweeter-wise, it's an aluminum magnesium tweeter. It's fairly small, but if you need it to be smaller to go in an OEM application, you just twist the back off. Comes apart in 3 pieces, and you've got a very small tweeter that'll go in pretty much any OEM application, A pillar, B pillar, up in the top of the door panel, whatever. So nice small lineup. Sounds really good. Again, for under $600, these sound amazing. I put these up against a lot of competitors' products that are higher priced than this, and a lot of people will win. Actually, we've done some demos. If you don't, dealer-wise, I'll tell you, if you don't control the demo, this will give Flax a run for its money if people aren't listening to if you're not controlling the demo and tell them what to listen for. The Flax has better upper mid-range detail, but I mean, if you're just A-Bing it and not knowing what you're listening for, a lot of guys will pick this because it's a couple $100 less. So for those dealers out there, make sure you're controlling the demo if you do have the Flax and the Slate Fiber on the same demo board.
All right, Grant, I think you've done an amazing job today kind of breaking down the different levels and offerings that are currently available from the Focal lineup of speakers. And in closing, my last question to you is, these are not speakers that are necessarily entry level. Of course, we're presenting this during the audiophile sessions, but what message do you have for dealers with the offering that Focal has right now? I think it's probably better than it's ever been.
No question at all that the offering's never been as good as this. I mean, some of the stuff we talked about today in the core line of products with the K2 EVO, with the Flax series of speakers, even the Utopia series of products has trickled into what their Focal inside line. We talked about an earlier episode with the Porsche speakers with using Utopia M drivers in it, Mercedes-Benz, and the new Tesla product using Flax drivers in there. And in the new BMW kits, they have K2 E products available in the BMW offering. So not only do we have an incredible range of products all the way from Auditor to Utopia M, there's another line of products in the whole Focal inside line that make this, you could run your store 100% speakers and subwoofer wise just on Focal. Absolutely. From entry-level price point to best of the best. There's no doubt in my mind that you could run your entire store with one brand. Now, that's not always feasible, but if you had to, you could certainly do that.
I want to take this opportunity and thank my guest today, Grant McFatter from Trends Electronics. And if you might have guessed, if you happen to be a dealer from Canada tuning in, then definitely you want to connect with the team at Trends, for they are the exclusive distributor for all things Focal here in Canada. And for more information, focal.com. They probably have put up the new information on the new Evo, and man, get over there. Everything you need to know, like the stuff that Grant was mentioning, from the Focal Inside to all the other products that Focal has to offer in mobile audio, is there for you to dissect. Now, in my closing comments, Focal is a legendary name in our game. There is no doubt it is probably and arguably one of the most recognized high-fidelity brands within our industry, especially for mobile audio. And as Grant mentioned, the fact that they continue to innovate, push the envelope, research and engineer, and most importantly, develop new technologies and product to inject into our market is something we should all be grateful for. With its rich history and continued ingenuity within home audio circles, this is a brand that lends itself to giving credibility and credence to what we do, and that is the aspiration of elevating the oral experience in a mobile car environment. Focal has done an amazing job coming up with different good, better, best, and even ultra levels, such as the Utopia M. And I think the recent introduction and the revision, and if not refresh, of the line of K2 was much needed, and it looks like they've done exactly what we wanted. Provide an extra tweeter option with the FRAC and other options with or without face plugs to give you, the dealer, many, 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 many different avenues to present to the customer. That's it for this CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.
There's never been a better time to have SiriusXM, with over 150 channels in your vehicle. Your Platinum Plan offer includes more than ever before to enjoy online, on your phone, or at home. Create your own ad-free personalized stations powered by Pandora. Hear ad-free extra channels and enjoy favorite shows with SiriusXM Video on Demand. What you love is on now.